Lastly, we want to discuss some issues about visualizing two related variables. Okay, in the previous two lecture videos, we only talked about some graphs for one variables. Okay, when you have two variables and we want to somehow visualize their relationship, there are some things to do. So when you have a data set for two variables, when we want to look at them, we want to identify whether there is any relationship between them. In that case, visualizing the data in a two-dimensional manner can help. And how to do that? Typically, we use a scatter plot. When you have two values for one observation, one thing you should do is to plot the two values at the two dimensions of a scatter plot. Okay, all you need to do is to provide a two-dimensional region, and then for the two values, use one of them to be plotted as the x coordinates and the other one as the y coordinates. So once you plot all the data points onto your scatter plot, you will be able to get a feeling about how these two data sets are related. So for our bike rental example, let's ask, how do monthly rentals in 2011 and those in 2012 relate with each other? Or let's ask, how do daily casual and the registered rentals relate to each other? Some typical questions we want to ask is, for example, for casual and registered rentals, is it the case that when one goes up, the other also goes up? Or is it the other way? Right? Is it the other way? So we want to ask whether they are proportional to each other, roughly proportional to each other, or whether when one goes up, the other goes down. With a scatter plot, we can answer this question. Let's talk about the monthly data first. We have all this data, right? For January, we have two numbers, one for 2011, the other for 2012. And for February, that's the same thing, and so on and so on. So we can plot them onto a scatter plot. For example, for this number, for January, we have around 40,000 and around 100,000, and this is exactly this point. Okay, for February we have around 5,000 and around again 100,000, so it's this point, and so on and so on. All you need to do is to plot each of these points onto this plot, and then you will get a scatter plot. Once you have it, then immediately you see somewhat a positive correlation with each other, right? It seems to you that when one variable goes up, the other also goes up, and it somehow gives you a hint that these two sets of data are positively correlated with each other. When one goes up, the other also goes up. Okay, so that's something a scatter plot can help you. Similarly, you may want to depict all the numbers onto your all the daily rentals into your scatter plot. Oh, this should be 731. And once you do that, you will see the graph to be a little bit messy at the beginning, right? Because there are many points there. And also you seem to see two different kinds of two different subgroups. If you separate them here, seems to you that okay, one group of data are something like this, the other are something like that, right? Then it's possible that indeed there are two subgroups within the 731 days, because they seem to have different patterns for you to go deeper for an analysis. Well, but before you do that, you don't know it. One possibility is, okay, these are weekend rentals, these are weekday rentals, probably. Or these are, I don't know, summer rentals, these are winter rentals, I don't know. But a graph gives you some hints and invites you to do some further investigations once you see the distributions of numbers, right? Another thing that you would observe is that, roughly speaking, still these two sets of data roughly are still positively correlated. When one goes up, the other one basically goes up. But in this graph, you see the trend is not so obvious compared to the previous graph. So graphs can really give you a very good intuition about your data, give you some hints about your data. But there is still a need for some quantitative numerical measurements for example, central tendencies, for how dispersed your data is, for whether the two sets of data are really positively correlated, or if they are that, then what's the degree, how serious they are. Okay, so we will leave those numerical descriptions or measurements to the next lecture. In this lecture, we will stop here with all the introduction of these useful graphs. Okay, that's the end of the video. Thank you.